I'm Anna, and I'm 14. For the last 2 years, I've had quite a problem. I found my parents terribly embarrassing and tried to keep them away from my school and friends. Don't get me wrong, I always liked my parents and actually got along with them quite well. I had gotten used to them and their mannerisms, but they had just become embarrassing to me the older I got. My mother has been talking and laughing too loudly for as long as I can remember. She also did things that just made me uncomfortable. At the school festival at my last school, there was a karaoke stage that was for the students from the lowest grades. None of the kids really dared to start. My mother, of all people, had to go on stage and sing terribly loud and off-key to encourage them. I covered my ears and would have preferred to sink into the ground. At the same school festival, my father was late as usual. I thought he could have used a shave and a change of clothes. Besides, he was in desperate need of a haircut. To make matters worse, he got into a hot dog eating contest with Tim from my class, soaking himself from top to bottom. Even worse was the way he stuffed the hot dogs into his mouth with both hands. I felt terribly ashamed and was the first from our family to go home without saying goodbye to my friends. When they got home and realized how upset I was, they asked what was wrong with me. Everyone had been having a lot of fun after all, and why I had to take everything so terribly seriously. I would learn to see things in a more relaxed way. They just didn't understand how embarrassing such performances were for me. I was just glad that the summer vacations started after the school party. Fortunately, after the vacations and our move, I could go to a new school. So I took it upon myself that my parents would just not show up at the new school. I told them before school started that I was now old enough to handle my school things myself and that they should also not bring me to school or pick me up from there anymore. All right, they said. If that's what you want, we'll do it, as long as it goes well. If there are difficulties or if you change your mind, we can always change it again. Things went really well with my new class from the beginning. Soon my birthday was coming up, and some of my new friends asked what we should do for my birthday. I told them I would think of something, thinking back to my 13th birthday when my parents were particularly embarrassing. Back then, when my friends and I came to our house after school to celebrate my birthday, my parents were dressed up as a fox and a chicken and shouted "Surprise!" loudly. Throughout the afternoon, my mom made noises like a chicken, and my dad made what he thought were fox barking noises. They even insisted on going to the movies with us in the costumes. My friends had fits of laughter, while I was just embarrassed. Couldn't my parents just be normal or even a little boring like other parents? Another time, we took a friend of mine to an amusement park. My mother insisted on riding the carousel with everyone. With her screeching on the roller coaster, she drowned out everyone else present. Meanwhile, my father was waiting on a park bench because he gets sick on carousels. When we got back to him, he had fallen asleep snoring with his mouth open. I was so ashamed of my parents that I never met up with this friend at my house again. One night at dinner, my parents asked what I would like to do for my 14th birthday. I had been dreading this question, but I had a plan. This time, I said, I want to invite Grandpa. My parents were happy about this since my grandfather is our only relative. Until now, we had rarely seen him since he didn't live near us and always worked a lot. And how many girlfriends or even friends do you want to invite? My mother asked. With my girlfriends, I'm going out for ice cream and to the movies one day later without adults, I replied. My parents looked at each other and sighed. Yes, she's getting fledged. We'll just have to deal with that, was all my father said. My grandfather came to see us the day before my birthday. Since my parents still had to work and shop anyway, I stayed home with him. He said he was looking forward to meeting my friends tomorrow. That made me embarrassed, and I said, I'm not celebrating with them until the day after tomorrow without adults. He immediately realized something was wrong and said I probably didn't want to put an old man through my friends. No, you wouldn't be a problem at all, I said. Who then? He asked. I blushed and told him about my plan to keep my parents away from my friends and how embarrassing they often were. Grandpa started talking about the past for the first time. He had always dismissed that before, saying, It's much more important to deal with the future. You can shape that, while the past stays the way it was. He began, "When your mother was your age, she was a very shy girl. Your grandmother had died by the time your mother was 2 years old, so maybe that was the cause. Anyway, she was so shy that she never attended a ballet recital even though she loved ballet and had ballet lessons for many years. Her teachers also complained because she never participated in class. I could not help her. It was only when she met your father that she decided to overcome her shyness, mainly because she wanted to become a mother who exemplified confident, free behavior one day. Your father had been raised by an uncle who died when your father was only 17 years old. He was completely on his own until he met your mother. The two were inseparable from the beginning. Your father wanted nothing so much as a family, just like your mother. Since then, he's worked tirelessly to make sure you're all okay. Do you know he works 3 different jobs, slaving from dawn to dusk?" "Yeah, something like that," I said, embarrassed. "In the morning, he's out delivering packages of newspapers for the paper delivery people long before you wake up. Then he's back home for breakfast with you and dinner, too. During the day, he works as a plumber, and at night he does additional emergency work for several other plumbing companies." I felt terribly guilty and suddenly felt nothing but arrogant and heartless. "I didn't know all that, or only partly," I said, "and I feel terrible. But my grandpa told me that neither he nor my parents would want that. Their intention had always been to give me as carefree and beautiful life as possible. And I realized that that was exactly what I had, a carefree, untroubled childhood and youth in which my parents made everything possible for me that was in their power." I was suddenly proud of my parents and asked my grandfather not to tell them about our conversation. The next morning, I woke up and heard rumbling in the house. When I came downstairs, there was the most amazing racing bike I had ever seen with a huge red bow on it. "Happy birthday!" my parents shouted. I had wanted a racing bike so I wouldn't have to take the bus anymore, but I hadn't imagined it would be this great. I was overwhelmed. Immediately, I remembered that it had always been like this. My parents fulfilled my wishes and regularly exceeded my expectations. Grandpa gave me the matching bicycle helmet. He winked at me and looked at my parents with pride. When we sat together at the table in the afternoon, I said, "This is a wonderful birthday with great presents. But in the future, I don't want such great gifts. I want to learn to work out and fulfill wishes myself. I'm going to take a job or a vacation job and start saving for my next big wish." "But then what about our vacations?" my father asked. "We'll just do that every other year, and maybe only for a week. I'd rather you didn't work so much anymore, Pa." My mother then said, "Okay, if you grow up like this now, then I can work more again. I would like that." I was really sad when my grandpa drove away again. We had never been that close before, but we would see each other more often now. Before I went to sleep that night, I asked my parents if I could have a pajama party with my friends tomorrow after all and eat the rest of my huge birthday cake with them. They laughed and just said I'd better still call my girlfriends to ask their parents and pack their pajamas. I did that and fell asleep very happy afterwards. We had a lot of fun the next day. My parents went to the movies in the evening, and I danced with my girlfriends to our favorite music videos. When my parents came back and squealed as they danced along, I didn't feel embarrassed for a moment. Even when Sophie rolled her eyes, I just said, "I know they're a little crazy, but definitely the best." Things have changed since my birthday. My ma still talks and laughs a touch too loudly, but she has become more confident, and through her new job, it seems more natural. My father doesn't work so much anymore and has much more time for himself and also for us. But I have changed the most. I don't take everything so much for granted anymore, but I don't take it so seriously either, and I'm very, very proud of my parents. I now deliver newspapers twice a week. At the next school festival at my new school, we definitely want to set up a karaoke stage, and I swear I'll start it off with my parents and I won't be embarrassed.